Seguimos en Futurecom 2011, esta vez nos visita un viejo conocido nuestro que se llama John Strand, que tiene una consultora reconocida a nivel global que se llama Strand Consult y que les invito a visitar la página web. Es especialista en temas como MVNOs, como Value Added Services, como smartphones, siempre con ideas muy innovadoras sobre cómo John percibe el mercado de las telecomunicaciones, y les recomiendo que visiten strandconsult.com para saber mejor de qué va. John, welcome to Telesemana.
Thank you.
I was telling our audience how good you are in terms of being a consultant in the telecom industry and how your views are very particular.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you about your views on this show. What have you seen, and what is your take on what's happening in Brazil, given that everybody is very excited about all the things that are happening here with the broadband, mobile broadband, the World Cup, the Olympics, and so on?
Yeah, I would say when I look at Brazil, it's the 17th time I'm in Brazil. I work a lot down here. I work with all the operators. I think it's a fantastic country. It is. It's really. It's amazing.
Country, yeah.
No, it's not only about good drinks and nice people and all that, but it's amazing country. I would say Brazil have maybe only one competitor, and that is Brazil itself. Very complex tax system, which is difficult for companies when they establish and work here and do business here.
Everybody complains about that, no?
It is very complex. They need some reforms to change the tax system so it's more easier. You can say you have a 42% telecommunication tax, which makes telecommunication a little bit more expensive, or significantly more expensive than other countries. Yep. And when you're sitting in my job, not to defend the telecommunication industry, it's a little bit like putting taxes on schools, because telecommunication is just as important for society as schools is, education is, and you would never put taxes on schools, say that you have to pay extra tax if you want to go to school. If you don't go to school, you don't pay tax. Yeah. So I
nobody will go to school.
No,
it's hard enough. So
I think it's, and you must remember, these taxes, they hit the most poor people hardest. So that would say that those which can afford to buy communication and have lots of money, then the telecommunication tax don't hit so hard. That's the A segment, and maybe to some extent the B segment. Yeah. But what's impressive with Brazil is the C class, which is exploding in that form that the numbers of people which is considered as middle class, or the C class as they call it here in Brazil, is soon passing 100 million people. And as I say, these 100 million people is the fundament for the Brazilian telecommunication industry. They are the country. For the country, but also for the telecommunication industry. And I think Brazil have really succeeded to, compared to a lot of other South American countries, they really succeeded to create a society where the C segment is growing. There's a lot of other countries in South America where we can see that the difference between the richest and the poorest become bigger and bigger. Yeah. Where here we are in a different situation where we actually can see, yes, there's still a lot of very rich people and there come more of them, but the C class is growing dramatically. On the other side, I would say this country is also suffering from lack of education. Lula, a former president, said proudly on the TV that he basically never read a book when he was young. And I would say that's not the role model to have in a country like this, have a president who says this, you don't need to read books, because you need to read books. And if you go to a country like Chile...
Well, perhaps he meant you need to read tablets.
Yeah, but I don't think he is thinking so far. No, it was a little bit like he wants to show that he was getting far in his life without any education, with his working background. But Brazil here, there's a lack of good people, and we know it from the telecommunication industry. You see a lot of foreigners working here because the industry can't get enough people with the skills things. I had a meeting yesterday at FGV, which is one of the leading business universities in South America, and we talked a lot about the lack of education, that they need people in this country with good educations. When you go to a country like Chile, which have a very strong tradition for education and have a very good education system, you see that the situation is not the same. So I think there's some challenge here, but I think it's amazing to see the conference, the fair have been fantastic. Many interesting things, really interesting, and I think it's interesting to see how fragmented the Brazilian telecommunication is. How many players are, the types of players, the optimism. you spend a lot of time in Europe. I would say I wish we had the same optimism in Europe as we say.
True. Well, let's talk about one of the opportunities that may arise here soon, or that should be arising soon, which are the MVNOs.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, and I remember talking to you about this a few years ago in Barcelona, there was an MVNO summit.
Yeah.
And one of the things was that Latin America needed to have in place regulation, and that was lacking back then.
Yeah.
Brazil already has it, but we don't see MVNOs moving yet on the mainstream. What's happening?
Yeah, you can say Anatel, the regulator, have done great work to do the regulation. I have personally been in Brasilia doing workshops for them. I have had meetings with them. They've been visiting me even in Copenhagen. They've been traveling around in Europe to see how it works and so on.
Yeah.
And they have got a regulation framework in place. There are certain things which I like. There are certain things I dislike. And I will focus on the things I dislike.
Okay.
One of the fact is that it's very difficult if you build an MVNO to sell it to an operator. So what we see, what's been driving a lot of the MVNO market in Europe is that the fact you can build up an MVNO and sell it to an operator and make a profit on that.
Okay.
That's difficult in Brazil. You have to build to run or be a part of some kind of consolidation.
So does that mean that you're going to have a profitable MVNO on your own? That you are going to end up selling it to the operator?
Right now, it looks like it could be very difficult to sell it to the operators.
Okay, it would be
so it's in that way, I would say there's some challenge. The second challenge is there's a lot of dreamers who wants to come to Brazil and make money.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of Europeans coming from Spain and England and Germany and whatever, Holland and so on, and they want to come here and build an MVNO and make money.
Yeah.
But I say to them, go to Brazil, have a nice holiday, but you need to be local to build it up.
Okay.
Taxation. If you have a client and it goes from Sao Paulo and it goes to Minas, he's roaming, and then there's different taxation on the communication, and how do you handle that? It's like it is a very complex market when it comes to a lot of these things. So. But there's some local initiatives, there's some MVNE starting up, it will come. There's a lot of people which have an idea what it is but have no experience.
Yep.
There are many dreamers. Everyone says, 200 million people, country with booming economy, 4 big operators, I want to be an MVNO, I can be very rich. It's a little bit like saying I want to sell a box of matches to each person in China. Then I can be a rich man. But I think that the Brazilian have to find its own way. It will not evolve like it have done in Spain. It will not go like it have done in Germany or in Holland or in Denmark. It will be different. It will find its Brazilian version. It will be different players. There's some players which have an idea to moving into this market. Yesterday I heard a guy talking about banks should move into this. There's no banks around the world which have been successful in the MVNO market. I can't see how they can add value. Forget it. We will probably see some retailers, and I believe we will see around 4 or 5 really successful MVNOs in Brazil over the next 3 to 4 years.
Okay. Now, leaving aside the MVNOs, because I want to touch with you another topic, which is the smartphones.
Yeah.
And we've seen your analysis on how the smartphones could be very dangerous for the operators because they consume a lot of resources, and ARPUs are not going up anywhere. Quite the contrary, data plans are going down very fast. So tell us what can happen in Brazil, where they expect the World Cup, and many people are talking that they're going to have an influx of smartphones under $100, and people are going to be using them all the time, like.
Yeah, I would say smartphones for $100 in Brazil would be nice, but realistic not, because we have this very high taxes on import.
Okay. So what if they are built here?
They're built here. There's still some of the products coming in, and let's see about them will come down there. But anyhow. It's not a market with the big tradition for subsidizing of phones. People buy a phone and they finance it by themselves, or Casa Bahia finance it for them. So
the issue is when you are subsidizing the smartphone.
They shouldn't subsidize it, definitely not.
Okay.
But the question is, there will probably be competition on data plans and prices, and they have to invent the right price plans and find a way to bundle it and do things to ensure it. And they have to learn by the mistakes some of the operators done in Europe, like we saw KPN in Holland, for instance, which did some mistake.
What was that mistake?
The mistake was it was selling like a flat rate data, unlimited data, which people start to use as a smartphone, as a modem on their laptop, and they start to use it to voice over IP, and it was cannibalizing on all the traffic which generated revenue. So in that way, there's no doubt about that. That they also here have to find a way to do it. It is a prepaid market, and the spending is still very different, and the spending is still low, taxation is still high. So And what on the content side, now they have the new rule of the law of 116, which is about now the telecom operators can go into the content industry and the media industry, where they were split before. So I would say that that is happening a lot, but again, it's where they have to work with these things, have to learn of the other operators' mistakes around the world.
All right. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of your insight. We know you have a lot of insight inside of you, so in 10 minutes we cannot suck everything out of you.
I do my best.
Yeah, we'll try in different interviews. Thank you so much.
Thank you.